Hey everyone, and welcome to Prune Belly Insiders. I'm glad to be back with another exciting story. Everyone, please I'm your host, Michael Adams. Please welcome today Ethan Conley.
Hi guys, how are you? Thank you for having me on, Michael.
No problem. Now, before we get started, I want to apologize to everyone for the noise in the background. I am currently in the hospital. So why don't we get right to your story, Ethan?
So my mom, she was at pregnant with twins, and they I was born at 36 weeks, and they noticed something was off, so they did a 3D ultrasound, and they called it fetal bladder obstruction at the time. And then I think when I was born at 36 weeks, they said it was prune belly, and then I had my first surgery when I was a day old, where they
What
just descended the testicles. And then it was always when I was going to need a kidney transplant. It was just a matter of when I was going to need a kidney transplant. And a lot of doctors was like, you like abort the pregnancy, like don't bother. You want to keep the other your my other twin healthy and safe. So yeah, and I also have a condition that's not related to the prune belly, hydrocephalus. Um,
can you explain that a little bit?
so it's basically where you get cerebral spinal fluid in your brain. So they said it was kind of common. So I have the most basic form, aqueductal stenosis,
Okay.
and I've had over 50 surgeries. Um, I lost the ability to urinate when I want to say in high school.
Do they know what caused that?
They I had a doctor in Boston when I had the urostomy placed. He said it could have been that my bladder was so overstretched that it just stopped. Because after surgery they would always have trouble waking up the bladder. So like I kind of saw it coming, but yeah, that was kind of how everything started.
All right. So you said you had 50 surgeries?
Yeah, about yeah.
Can you talk about some of the surgeries for a little bit?
Kidney transplant. Um, I have severe scoliosis, but now it's cured since I have everything fused. I recently had a pelvis fusion about in August of the summer because I was in so much pain. I kind of wanted a solution because my curve was about 90 degrees. So
And how
my
old were you when you had that done?
I was in third grade, so I was about like 7 or 8. That was when the rods were placed. And then I had lengthening procedures every couple months.
All right. And how old were you when you got the kidney transplant?
7, so to 2009.
All right. So how'd you feel going into those two surgeries?
I felt very sick. I do remember. Like I remember when I was in full-blown kidney failure, I like passed out at a baseball game and my potassium was through the roof. And that was kind of when they started the process of having my family members get tested and all that. My dad ended up being my donor, so it was kind of easy and straightforward.
Wow, that's amazing. My mom donated my kidney.
Okay, yep.
So what are some other surgeries you've had?
So hydrocephalus, like about maybe 10 to 15 brain surgeries around. Um, the everywhere in my stomach. I had a feeding tube when I was young. Um, when I was right about when I turned 18, I always, because in my head I'm like, oh, my stomach doesn't look normal. Because it's, to me it looked like this big blob, and I always wanted the abdominoplasty to look a little bit more normal. And the plastic surgeon I saw kind of shut down the idea. He was like, "Well, you should be dead. I don't know why you're coming to me." and he's like, this is kind of a cosmetic procedure. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of the point. But also it can be um beneficial to you health wise. But I heard some other stories like the surgeon that I just saw and how they would do it, and I was kind of like, you know what, I'm kind of fine there.
Yeah, I've had about four abdominoplasties. One of the things they don't tell
Oh
you about
wow.
this, yeah, one of the things they don't tell you about the surgery is that it actually weakens your back muscles as well.
Oh wow, what muscle did they take?
Uh, I think they took muscles from my back. I'm not 100%
Oh,
sure.
okay. Because I heard stories where they take it from like the thigh. And
Yeah, I've heard about that too. That's actually one of the surgeries I want to get, but I'm trying to find a doctor who will do it.
right,
So, why don't you talk a little more about your surgeries?
So yeah, kidney transplant. That's actually been 14 years post-transplant, really stable.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Um, I would say the pelvis fusion was by far the toughest I've ever been through. I had to relearn how to walk again. Um, it was just really tough, but mentally and physically, I would say the back surgeries took the toughest toll mentally and physically.
All right.
Because my spine was in a completely different setting. Um, and I had the urostomy, that was a big one. So I self-cast down below through my urethra for about 4 years when I was in high school, and I had feeling down there, and I was like, well, I'm gonna be doing this for the rest of my life. I kind of wanted a change where I wouldn't feel any pain or discomfort. And my urologist, who's the reason why I'm alive today, was not against it, but he was like, this would be a really tough procedure. Like he wasn't sure, so he made me go see a doctor in Boston about it to see what his opinion was. And he sees a lot of prune belly patients, and he was like, "Yeah, we can do this." So he came down to assist the surgery with my urologist, and it was about maybe a 7 week recovery, full of growing pains, for sure.
All right. That's interesting. So, you said you had to learn to re-walk.
Yeah, because my spine was at that 90-degree curve for most of my life, and they put the obviously the metal. I was straight, and I was like, my body was like, whoa. I had to relearn everything. Same thing with the pelvis procedure. So
Could you go into a little bit more detail on it?
the pelvis fusion.
Yeah.
So basically, every time I would move, my pelvis would turn this way. So I'm pretty sure I had hip dysplasia as well. So um my hips were able to get aligned because I had like a dip in my spine, 'cause even though most of my spine was fused. So the he was like, yeah, we can do this, because I, I go to school in Boston, so I was like, I went to see this doctor in Boston to see what he would say about the pain in my spine, to see if it was causing anything, which they found out it was a compressed disc I had when they opened me up. And so the pelvis, they fused it uh all the way down to my hip, I would say. And I've lost, like, obviously my jumping ability, which I never had to begin with, but I lost a little bit of that. But at the same time, I already see the difference now, and it hasn't even been a year yet.
All right. And how was it going through all these surgeries and still trying to keep your grades up or stay in school or, stuff along those lines?
For sure, it was always tough growing up. I even say high school was the worst 4 years because I had a major surgery in all of those 4 years. It was always tough. Social life has always been tough because you're not at school for a full year. You're kind of focusing on your health, and I matured at a very young age because I was around adults my whole life and doctors. and I had to make these tough decisions. So yeah, school was obviously really tough, even with a learning disability on top of it.
What learning disability?
So because of the hydrocephalus, it slowers my like I have a processing disorder, so it just takes a little bit longer. So yeah, it was always tough, but I had really good teachers that were supportive and not, I feel like it was 50-50 there, but overall I would say it was very challenging.
Did you have to deal with any bullying or any stuff like that?
Yeah. Um, so because I was a very friendly and likable kid in school, people would always do it behind my back because they would, cyberbullying was a big thing, or like just little jabs here and there about my appearance and what I looked like.
Yeah,
Because when you have hydrocephalus, your head is slightly bigger, and obviously, with the prim belly, my spine was my head was always tilted to the side. So yeah, I dealt with a lot of bullying growing up. Um, but I would say when I went to college, that stopped. Um, well, for a little bit this year, I kind of dealt with it a little bit for sure. Because I'm an assistant coach for my basketball team, and my teammates like would take little jabs, and I recently had to confront him and saying I didn't appreciate that. That's not cool.
yeah. So, what would you say is the hardest thing about living with prune belly syndrome?
I think for me, it's always an everyday challenge because there are so few of us. Where like every place I go to for a hospital, I'm always seen as the only one that, and I have it pretty severe, so there's not many people that have a lot of my complications or issues. Um, like my coach, we when I first met him, he didn't know a lick about my story or anything. And I was struggling my first year of college, and he kind of came on to me really hard. And, to set him straight, I went into his office to tell him, my whole story.
Yeah,
And it was really hard because that was probably the first time I ever did it on my own. And he was like, wow, like, I apologize. Um, so yeah, I would say it's an everyday challenge because there's so few of us, and you don't see, and they're not really easy to talk about the problems that you face day to day. Like, there's not few people. There's only us will understand people with prum belly.
yeah. Now, I'm trying to think how to word this so I don't offend doctors, but how do you feel when there's a doctor who feels like he knows everything, but then behind the scenes has to go Google what prune belly is?
Oh yeah, all the time. So I had a spine surgeon who I got rid of him, but he was the reason. Like he literally did not fight. So the doctors in Boston were like they fought for this pelvis fusion big time. Um, he was actually one of the reasons why I ended up having a staph infection my senior year of high school. I was in like this debilitating pain. I couldn't walk. Like I needed a wheelchair for my graduation, and he ignored the phone calls for 8 straight weeks. Um, but my mom would probably have a better answer for this, but I would say it was my orthopedic surgeon. But this fertility specialist, Dr. Carr, was like, nothing you do is going to change. He will not be born alive. He's lucky if he takes his first breaths or rides a bike. Um, so yeah, it's just, you know, you kind of just gotta ignore like, yeah, I would actually encourage them to be straight with you and be like, I'm sorry, I'm not too familiar with Broombelly.
I'm same way. So, you said that a lot of people don't have some of the same complications as you. What complications would you say? you're talking about there?
Club feet I have
Oh, my
the
brother has that.
really the really bad scoliosis. I'm trying to think of what else. I ha the urostomy thing. I don't. I've met very few, but I actually met someone that has it, but it's through his appendix. What they did with mine because I have such a large bladder capacity. They used live bladder because my bladder was so healthy. So
Oh, interesting.
that's how they created the urostomy.
Yeah, I don't know if it's called a urostomy or a metrophenol. I've heard both
Yes, yeah,
words and both
Mitrofanov, yeah.
terms, but I have one too, and they actually took the ureter from mine to build it.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Hmm. Oh
Yeah,
yeah, that's the
so
other
that
thing. They basically had to rebuild my urethra. That was the other thing.
yeah. So what would you say is the silver lining or eat or best thing living with this condition?
Probably having compassion for others. I would easily say that. Easily because I think it gives my two sisters, like my older sister, she wants to become a special education teacher because she sees how much I struggle every day in the classroom because it's hard because I always say every class I attend I'm at a 10-point disadvantage. Um, but it's a everyday fight, I would say, because you have to take your meds, you have to, catheterize 5, 6 times a day. I would say it's a full-time job where
Yeah, definitely.
other people don't realize that. So yeah, I would say it's a continuous fight every day. You have to put your health first. No, there's no other option.
Yeah. I've actually had to stop schooling due to some of my health issues, and I'm going back this fall.
Same. I had to take 3 semesters off already.
Yeah, I had to take like a year off.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, hmm, you said you have siblings. How's your relationship with them?
Um, Honestly, I think it's the best it's ever been now. I think when I grew up, they were kind of confused, like they didn't fully understand. Um, but I think now they do because they're like, well, all the attention was going to me because I was so sick all the time, which I feel guilt about that all like almost daily.
Same.
Um, but now I think it's better as it's ever been. They have a full understanding.
That's great. So, who would you say is your support team?
My parents, they've been awesome every step of the way. Um, and my two sisters, they're also my support system as well. Um, my mom, she fought for me. Yeah, my two parents, they fought for me. The reason why I'm here, like they, all the doctors that told them no, they said yes because my mom was like, "Well, find me a doctor that will listen to me and that think this child will be born alive." And they believed like I was told I wasn't college material, and my two parents are like, "You have what it takes. You can go to college." Um, no, yeah, they've always had this thing like you can do anything you put your mind to, no matter what you have going on.
My parents are exactly the same way. They're just an amazing support staff. Um, so why don't you talk about some other surgeries you've had a little bit more?
Okay, let's see. The easiest would probably be the lengthenings I had every couple months.
The
Like,
what?
so I had growing rods, so I guess they lengthen them to make you taller. So that was like a 2 week recovery. The scariest, but I would say it's the easiest was because I've had so much scar tissue in my stomach. The shunt they have a shunt for the hydrocephalus that will drain the fluid into your brain that to prevent to go into the brain. So I had so much pressure on my brain that I was like in this coma for like 3 days. I like next thing you know, I'm waking up and it's like the middle of the night, and I had no idea that I was like sleeping for 3 days straight.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing.
Where like yeah, yeah, because I think I was in surgery the next day after that, or honestly, it might have been after, because they did like three shunt taps, and I don't even remember those because those can be pretty painful because they just get it's a needle where the hole in your brain is, where the scar is.
Yeah. So, have you ever dealt with, say, depression, anxiety, or things along those lines?
Oh yeah, anxiety is a huge part of my life. Even I think it's worse now. Medical PTSD. I used to have like attacks 5, 6 times a day. Because I
Yeah.
forget, because I made so many friends when I did dialysis over that short period of time, and I remember entering the room and I would smell like it's like this vinegar smell, and it brought back so many memories. Like even when my sisters were going for checkups, my mom had to remind me like it's not for you, like to calm me down.
Yeah, I'd say I have the same thing with the medical PTSD, but that's mainly because when I was little, the doctors really didn't listen to a single word I had to say,
Right, yeah.
and treated me as if I was stupid, even though I'm the one living with this condition. So I have a very, very, very hard time trusting doctors.
Yeah, I understand that for sure.
So, what would you tell somebody or advice would you give them if they were living with depression or living with prune belly?
That you matter. There are people out there with this condition. Because for the longest time, it took me 21 years to actually find people that live with my condition. Like, I remember for the longest time, there was a time where I accepted that I was the only one with this condition. And
I
my depression was so bad, and it's all related to my illness, anxiety for sure. But yeah, and then I found people with this condition, and days got brighter.
so how did you find people with this condition?
Um, it's through the Prune Network page on Facebook, and then my mom, she would tell me that she met with a couple of the people that are in that group as well.
And how old were you when you met the first and you first met another prune belly?
Um, she's my mom said I met Kurt when I was a young kid, so I want to say like a baby, like 5 or 4, around that time.
All right.
Because I didn't walk that's another, I didn't walk until I was 4.
Yeah. So trying to think. Is there any other surgeries you can tell us about?
I'm trying to think. So, about 10 to 15 shunt revisions for the hydrocephalus. Um, a lot, G tube placements. Kidney transplant.
And would you need the G tube for?
Because when I had chronic kidney disease, my appetite was like non-existent, even still is to this day. I'm not a big, my appetite's still not there. So
Yeah.
they placed the feeding tube, so I would do like Pediasure, uh, like I want to say twice a day.
Yeah, I actually still have a feeding tube because 2 years ago I was actually diagnosed with median arcuate ligament syndrome and gastroparesis,
Okay.
which the median arcuate ligament syndrome or MALS causes pain while eating. So
Oh,
I've had that since I was 16 years old, and it's gotten to a point where I didn't want to eat anything. So they ended up putting a G tube in, and even that didn't work, so we ended up using it just for hydration purposes.
Right. It's crazy. I remember as a kid, I thought it was normal for my urine to be like dark, like picture like a Coca-Cola. Like that's
Yeah.
what it looked like. And I thought that was normal. So I remember it was a week after my transplant. I remember going to the bathroom and it just felt not like usual, and it was like the normal yellow color that you see, and I was like, wow. And I my kidneys were so shot that I couldn't sweat. So like I'm saying to myself, like, why am I wet over here? Like, yeah. So I was sweating again.
So obviously you've had a lot of surgery. So what advice would you give somebody getting ready to go into a surgery and is scared?
It's okay to be scared. Like, if if you have fear, then you have something to lose. Like don't. It's okay. It's okay to be scared. You're always gonna pull through because that's what my parents would always tell me. You're always gonna pull through. You're gonna be okay. Like it's 5 seconds. You're gonna be good to go.
Yep, you're gonna go to sleep, not remember a thing, and then wake up with a scar.
It's it's crazy. It's because I get so much medical PTSD whenever I have a surgery. I need like uh Versed to calm me down.
Yeah. So what would you say is the hardest thing of prune belly?
Oh
I don't know if I've
man.
asked that already or not.
No, that's a great question because I'm someone who doesn't see myself as disabled, but that's not the reality. Unfortunately, I am. I think it's finding a group of people that truly understand what you're going through is the hardest part because, not everybody has to use a metrophenoff to go to the bathroom and drain that bladder or has to take medication every day to keep them alive.
Yeah.
It's a you have to do these daily tasks that your life depends on it.
Now, I've heard it from some prune bellies who've been on my show, but not necessarily every prune belly. Have you ever gotten so, I'm trying to think of the right word for this, fed up for a lack of better term, that you stopped taking your medication?
Never have actually. Only because dialysis was my big incentive
Oh.
because it was so painful and I never want to go back on dialysis again.
Oh, you did go through dialysis.
So that was a big motivator.
What was that like?
It was awful, one of the worst experiences of my life.
All
And it
right.
was so bad because I had the hydrocephalus. Um, so they would always have neurosurge to check in to see if it was like okay to do the treatment. And I remember it was the first treatment and I felt so awful. Like it was like I felt so fatigued, tired. So yeah, that's always been a big motivator was I never want to do dialysis again. But I know there will come a time where this kidney won't last forever.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you can find a kidney before you have to do
Right.
dialysis when this one dies.
Right.
And that's if this one dies, because living donors do tend to last a lot longer than dead donors.
Right.
So, what did dialysis feel like?
Like very draining. Like it felt like all my energy was sucked out.
All
Like
right.
I remember getting all like this big migraine after every treatment and like just like chronic fatigue. It was like mind blowing to me.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we're getting ready to wrap things up. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, I th any question that you are curious about or want covered?
Um, Not that I could think of, other than how did your family react when they found out you had prune belly?
Um, My mom, she was always like, okay, what's the next steps here? My dad was very mad at God at the time because because his father passed away at a very young age. He's like, oh, okay, so God's gonna take away my dad and my son too. Like
Yeah.
he,
So,
no, continue. Sorry.
I'm sorry about that. So if you had a crystal ball and you saw what your life was going to be like, and you had the choice instead of your mother whether or not to continue with the pregnancy, would you have done it?
Yes, because I'm very grateful the life I've had. Like, yes, there's days there probably for the first time in my 21 years, I was like, why can't it be normal? Like, be born normal. But I wouldn't change a thing still because I don't think I would be as compassionate for others. And I got a toughness and an edge about me because of my Prune belly syndrome condition.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's absolutely amazing. I absolutely love your optimism. All right, everyone. So I want to thank Ethan again for coming on the show. And remember to like, subscribe, and share the video. Together we can hashtag spread prune belly awareness. And I'll see you next week.